Today is lesson 82, and we will be dealing with greatest, which is another word for biggest, common, which is another word for alike, factors. Greatest common factors. Now this is going to be a great help for reducing your fractions, is to know how to find the greatest common factor. Now we're going to call that the GCF, will be our abbreviation for it. Greatest, again, means biggest, common means alike, and factors are the factors that you have, what you multiply together to get a number. So let's take a look at a couple examples, and then I'm going to show you the long way and the short way of using that to reduce your fractions. So let's take a look first at the greatest common factors of something simple like 2 and 4. Now, the first thing you have to do is be able to list the factors. Remember, factors are like French fries. They're smaller than their number box. So our number box is 2, so the factors are going to have to be 2 or smaller. They're what I multiply together to get 2. So I would say 1 and 2 are my factors of 2. Now my factors of 4, I say 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. You don't write any number twice. Now, I have found the factors of both of them, but I am looking for the greatest common factor. Now, the fact that it's the greatest, it has to be the biggest, and the fact that it's common means in both. So the biggest number that is in both and that are factors. So hopefully you can see that it would be the 2 and the 2. So let's try it again with another number. How about, let's do 4 and 16. Now I've already done the factors of 4, but I would say 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. Those are my factors. Then the factors of 16. I have 1 times 16. Does 2 go in evenly? Sure does. 2 times 8. Does 3 go into 16? No. Does 4 go into 16? Yes, it does. 4 times 4. So there are my factors of 16. 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. Now again, I'm looking for the greatest, the biggest, common, meaning in both or the same in both, factors. Well, I'm going to start with my smaller and say, well, I can start with the 16. There's no 16 in there. There's no 8 in there. But that's why it's easier to start with your smaller number, because then you know you're not going to have any of the big ones. Is there a 4? Yes, there is. So 4 and 4 are my greatest common factor. Now let me ask you a question. There's a 2 and a 2. Why would 2 not be our greatest common factor? Answer that in your head. And hopefully in your head you said, because it's not the biggest, it's not the greatest common factor, it's just a common factor. Same with the 1. It is common, it is in both, but it's not the greatest common factor. Now let's go ahead and do one more, the long way out, which would be 8 and 20. Now, if we were to turn this into a fraction and we wanted to reduce it, could I reduce it by 2? I could, but that's not going to be my greatest common factor. I'm going to have to keep making steps to keep getting Superman back to Kent Clark. So let's take a look at this by doing the factors of each number. We'll start with the 8. 1 times 8. Does 2 go into 8? It sure does. 2 times 4. Does 3 go into 8? Nope. And then we're at 4, so we know we're done. The factors of 20 would be 1 times 20. Does 2 go into it? Yep. 2 times 10. Does 3 go into 20? Not evenly. Does 4 go into 20? Yes, 4 times 5. And there's no more numbers in between, so I know I'm done there. Now we're going to look for the greatest common factor. We're going to start with our lowest number, which is the 8. Is there an 8 down in the bottom? No. Is there a 4 down in the factors of 20? Yes, there is. There's 4 and there's a 4. Again, why would it not be 2? Well, because 2 is not the greatest common factor. Now, I want you to see that if we go 8 over 20 and we divide it by 2 over 2, which is a factor, we go 8 divided by 2 is 4, 20 divided by 2 is 10. I am not fully reduced. Is there a number that goes into the 4 and the 10? Yes. So I have to do more work. But watch what happens if we use the greatest common factor, which would be the 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 20 divided by 4 is 5. I am now at my fully reduced fraction. Here, not fully reduced because you didn't use the greatest common factor. Here, yay, fully reduced because I used the greatest common factor. Now, does it truly matter? No. So long as you end up with this answer right here, it's fine. Today, you have to use out and find the greatest common factor. But in general, it's okay if you do multiple steps. Now, there's one last thing I want to show you, which is a little bit of a shortcut for doing the reducing with the greatest common factor. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the exact same numbers again, just since they're familiar and you'll be able to see what I'm doing. If you have a fraction, step number 1 is go to the smallest number in your fraction. Now usually it's going to be the numerator, but not always. So don't put down go to the numerator. You got to go to the smallest number. And then step number 2, find the factors of the smallest number. Sorry, I got off lines here. Of the smallest number. So, let's do those 2 steps. Go to the smallest number. Well, the smallest number is the 8. 8 is smaller than 20. Hopefully we didn't have any problems with that. Step number 2, find the factors of the smallest number. 1 times 8, 2 times 4. I'm just going to list them out. Now, step 3, determine greatest common factor by looking at just what you've written. And go, does 8 go into 20? Nope, it doesn't. So it's out of there. Does 4 go into 20? Yes, it does. So voila, we have found our greatest common factor and we have reduced our fraction. So if you can remember those 3 steps, go to the smallest number, find the factors of the smallest number, and then use that to determine your greatest common factor. Let's do 2 more examples together. I will work them out partially for you and then we'll check them together in class. The first one I want you to do is 6 over 9. Now, let's do it the short way by, number one, go to your smallest number. Write down the factors of your smallest number. Use those factors to determine your greatest common factor. Does 6 go into 9? No. Does 3 go into 9? Yep. Bingo. We found our greatest common factor. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Voila, our reduced fraction. All right, your turn. Do 6 over 12. Go to your smallest number. Write the factors of that number, the smallest. Use your list of factors to determine your greatest common factor and divide it out to get your answer and then circle it. And no, I'm not going to put the answers in. We'll do those tomorrow. And finally, one last one on your own. Now we'll hold off on that one. Let's leave it with just one. We'll do a couple more examples tomorrow, and then I'm going to have you do some practice as well. So make sure you know those steps. Find the lowest number. Find the factors of that lowest number. Use those factors to determine your greatest common factor. Now, by the way, I hope you saw we don't go to the biggest number because we won't see any of those big factors. If I started with the 9, I would be going 1, 3, 9. Does 9 go into 6? Well, obviously anything bigger than 6 won't work. So that's why we go to our smallest number first. So hopefully that makes some sense to you and will make reducing fractions a lot easier for you. Have a wonderful evening.